Welcome to I Drink Your Podcast, where we drink and talk about movies from 2007.
The fourth dimension will collapse upon itself, you stupid bitch.
Shut up, I'm a man and I know what's good for me.
Bountiful penis. Amen.
Boy, my ass is sore.
You can get pink eye from farting in a pillow?
Yeah, but you gotta be bare-assed.
I'm gonna invent a toothbrush for your butthole.
It does the trick.
Paddington Bear.
He's a homewrecker?
Yeah, he wrecks homes.
You are a murderer of love.
I drink your podcast. I drink it up.
Welcome back to another episode of I Drink Your Podcast. I'm joined today by Emily.
Hello, everyone.
And our wonderful recurring guest, Dylan.
Howdy!
Woo! Glad to have you guys here today to talk this Stephen King thriller 1408 or 1408 or what?
1408. Is that what you were going to try?
Yeah, that's what I was going to go for, but I have already been drinking a little bit, and this will be fun. Speaking of that, what is everybody drinking today?
I needed some comfort today. I struggled a lot, so I'm just drinking a rum old fashioned because it brings me comfort and happiness, because this movie didn't give me any of those feelings.
I was assuming Southern comfort when you said that.
No.
That's too bad.
I went with my old standby, a rum old fashioned. It is very comforting, and it's like a hug on my liver.
Wow. Okay. Dylan, how about you?
Well, since I've been growing a beard lately, I am just going with good old-fashioned Coors Banquet. Because I love me some Sam Elliott, and I know I'll never get a beard as luscious as that man has one, but, you know, every day's a banquet.
And I would like to point out that your beard with like the beautiful white and black hair kind of looks like Samuel Jackson's beard in this movie.
Oh, yeah. I see it.
Right?
Yeah, I never knew that Dylan looked so much like Samuel L. Jackson until this moment.
Very. I get that all the time. It's also because I say bad motherfucker. Like,
you do,
constantly.
like almost exclusively.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That
but
makes
never
sense.
about myself. It's everybody else is a bad motherfucker.
No, it's always your children.
That Lily's a bad motherfucker.
Yeah.
And Ben, for your birthday, what are you drinking?
Yeah, it is my birthday today, so I decided to treat myself to a nice bottle of bourbon. I got a Four Roses small batch select. You know, I did the intelligent consumer thing, and I looked up what are the best bourbons of 2021, and this was number one. So I'm going to be sipping on that, just like how John Cusack got that bottle of liquor from Samuel L. Jackson. That was a really nice bottle of whiskey that he could drink in his room.
Very nice.
All
Cheers.
comes full circle.
Happy birthday, Ben. Woo!
Thank you.
Treat yourself.
So before we get into this movie, what have y'all been watching recently?
Well, I've been watching a lot of TV recently. My husband and I got a house, which you two know, and we're really excited about it. But that means that we actually have time to get caught up on things that we've been meaning to watch.
Because you're no longer looking for houses.
Yes. So because it was like a fucking full-time job. It was awful. So we got caught up on Jujutsu Kaisen, which is a really cool shonen anime. And it is all about curses and battling. And the animation itself is just gorgeous. The fight scenes are so fun and interesting, and the characters are fantastic. It has the best bromance you will ever see in anything ever. I love it. I've also been watching Kim's Convenience as I've been grading because it's the end of the school year. And so I've been really enjoying that. It's kind of like a comfort comedy for me, even though I've never seen it before. It's just really wonderful. And I love the humor. I love the characters in it. It's really fun. I think both of you would probably like it. I don't know if you've seen it or not.
No, I haven't seen it, but it does look interesting to me.
Yeah, it's based off a play originally.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it was originally a play written by a Korean Canadian and
named Kim.
No, actually.
Oh.
And he wrote this play and then sold the rights, got it to be a TV show. And so I think they just finished up their 5th season. It's really, really cool.
Awesome.
And then, of course, I have been watching the new season of Castlevania, which is fucking insane. I love it. And Dylan, I don't know if you've watched Castlevania, but it's totally your shit. Like, you have to stop everything and watch Castlevania.
All right. I've actually heard with the first, the Juju Kaisen, I can't pronounce it.
Jujutsu Kaisen.
Okay, if it was in front of me, I took Japanese in high school, and if it was in front of me, I could probably read it.
Mm-hmm.
But I've heard the manga and the show is really solid.
Mm-hmm. It's
I've
really,
heard
really great.
that it's really, and I've actually thought about picking that up because I don't think it's available on the Shonen Jump app. I have to look. I have the Shonen Jump app. So I've been reading, like My Hero Academia and One Piece and Demon Slayer.
Ugh, Demon Slayer is also good.
Yeah. But I've heard that first thing is really solid. And I've heard good things about Castlevania too.
Yep.
Dylan, what have you been watching?
For me, with work being what it is, and I was offered a new job, so I start a new job on the 9th.
Yay!
Nice.
But since we've had nothing to do, like for the last 3 or 4 weeks, I have been working on Gundam models, and B, watching a lot of the Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs from Friday nights on Shudder, and just a lot of Shudder and a lot of just horror stuff, just because it's like the only time I can ever watch anything like that. Because with 2 kids, you really can't watch anything like that. So, and also I found on YouTube, I don't know how legal or illegal this is or not, but one of my favorite anthology series of all time is Tales from the Crypt.
Oh, yeah.
The old HBO show. And I think there's a guy he must be based in Canada, I think. But he has every episode of Tales from the Crypt uploaded onto YouTube.
Oh, cool.
So I've been watching a lot of that too, because I love that show. And it's not super scary. It's very just like Twilight Zone with a horror tinge to it. So it's not too horribly violent or gory. It has its episodes, but it's really not that bad. And it's pretty fun. And I'm rewatching The Office for probably my 10th or 20th time through.
10th or 20th.
Well, and here's my odd OCD. After I finish The Office, Parks and Rec.
Mm-hmm.
So Parks and Rec coming right on from, and then after that, Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yep. And then where does 30 Rock fit in?
It's usually 30 Rock, then The Office, then Parks and Rec, and then Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yep.
Yeah. Loving that peacock.
That's right.
Okay, Ben.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun. Here we go. I've been comfort watching Wet Hot American Summer, the 2 Netflix seasons, enjoying the rewatch of those. I saw it when it first came out and rewatched it again. And I just love the manic energy of that show. And then on kind of the opposite end of the comedic spectrum, I have been thoroughly enjoying Bo Burnham's new comedy special, Inside. It is the closest thing to a movie experience I think a comedy special could ever be. You can tell just from the way that he shoots it and the lighting and everything within it that Bo Burnham is just a master with the camera. And if you've seen his movie 8th Grade, you have seen his skill at work, because that's another phenomenal movie that he made. But it's incredible. And it is an incredibly moving piece of art that may not be funny all the way through, because it dives into some pretty deep issues and deep ideas, but it is thoroughly affecting, and it leaves me just feeling in this state of, if you ever want to replicate what it felt like to be in COVID, watch this special, because that sense of existential dread, that sense of worry, you can feel all of those anxieties that he put into this piece of comedy. And it's just so good. And the songs are so catchy, even when he's singing about, white women on Instagram, or if he's singing about unpaid interns, or if he's singing something more personal. It's just phenomenal. And kudos to the guy for being top of the class when it comes to comedians right now.
How many times have you seen it, Ben?
So it came out last Sunday, and I've seen it 5 times.
Okay.
And that's not including random clips of songs that I've just thrown on. at random points throughout the day. So
highly recommended by Ben.
Moving on now to something that is not like anything that I just talked about. We watched 1408 this week.
Mm-hmm.
And during the first half of our podcast, we'll be discussing and reviewing 1408. And the second half features our Battle of Twits, a creative competition this week featuring myself versus Dylan. Our current leaderboard is Wes with 7, Matt and the guests with 5, myself with 1, and Emily with 0. Like I said, we did watch 1408, directed by Mikhail Hofstrom, featuring John Cusack, Samuel L. Jackson, and Mary McCormick.
My concern here is not for the hotel. My concern here is not for you. Frankly, selfishly, I don't want you to check into 1408 because I don't want to clean up the mess.
Mike Enslin, played by John Cusack, a well-known author evaluating the supernatural, receives an anonymous postcard telling him not to stay in room 1408 at the Dolphin Hotel in New York. So obviously, that's what he tries to do. Gerald Olin, played by Samuel L. Jackson, tries to discourage Mike, telling him that in the last 95 years, 56 people have died in the room and that no one lasts more than an hour. Mike sees this as a challenge and heads upstairs.
I guess kind of my first thing that I could think of here is we've done a couple episodes with myself and dealing with Stephen King novels and short stories. And I just was kind of wondering at first, what was your guys' first experience with like a Stephen King book, movie, TV show, miniseries, what was the first thing that like memory-wise that you have that you're like, Stephen King is a thing?
Mine was The Stand, the miniseries that came out in 1995. So I was a fifth grader at that time, and I remember sitting down and watching that, and that being really my first introduction to anything Stephen King. Now, it's probably one of his... It was very inaccessible for me as a fifth grader watching it then, but I've gone back and watched it since, and it's a phenomenal story, but it's not something that at that time I was able to kind of latch onto or really get into.
What's it about?
The Stand is about a plague that wipes out a majority of the world's population, and then the battle of good and evil that basically plays out in the aftermath of that.
Okay.
It's kind of, I watched the CBS All Access. I've seen both the original ABC miniseries and I watched the CBS All Access miniseries. And I'd still have to say I prefer the ABC old school one to the newer one. But it just felt really odd watching that with COVID going on. Mm-hmm. It just was kind of had a little extra creep factor to it for me. But yeah, The Stand is pretty. It's pretty. Now, have you read the book, Ben, or no?
So I tried to read the book, but again, I tried to read it like after I watched the miniseries. So I was in like 6th or 7th grade, and it's a good 1,200 page book. Mm-hmm. So I did not make it very far.
Okay.
Well, I have never really liked anything scary. I don't know if I've ever told you guys this, but Large Marge from Pee Wee Herman was the scariest thing to me. When her face is all distorted and shit, like, oh my God, could not handle that. Still have never watched it since then. I'm just too terrified. So I feel like I've gotten better with scary things. But the first time I realized that Stephen King was an author, my friend Alyssa, who's my best friend in the world, read The Shining. And I think we were in middle school. And she kept telling me, oh, it's so good. And it's really amazing. You definitely have to read it. And she had nightmares for weeks and weeks and weeks, but she kept encouraging me to read it. And I was like, nah, I'm good. I don't want to. But then my second like real experience with Stephen King, again, I never have watched or read anything until now, this stupid podcast, The Things, was when It came out in the recent years and there were people around the streets dressing up as clowns. Do you remember that, Ben? And
that was even before It came out. That the clown scare was pre-It even.
Right, but that was like the connection, and then It came out like after that.
Yep.
And my students, they were all like 6th and 7th graders, and they would constantly talk about it and talk about scary clowns. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm good. I don't really need to watch anything or read anything by Stephen King, even though at this point now I have read some of his works. So I do like his short stories so far from what I've read.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you've seen now Shawshank.
Shawshank Redemption is a Stephen King.
It is.
I had no idea.
That was one of his short stories.
Interesting.
Believe it or not.
And I've also seen The Mist, which is Stephen King, and now I've seen 1408.
You've never seen Stand By Me?
Don't know what that is.
Okay, then that's a no.
Dylan, what was your first experience? Because I'm sure you have a great one.
Well, no, mine's probably pretty similar, kind of depends. And I'm going to go back one to the TV movie of It, starring Tim Curry as Pennywise the Clown. And
I take that back. Walking in the movie rental store, I did see the image of Tim Curry as It. And I had just watched Rocky Horror. So I was like, oh, I should watch that. And my dad's like, you don't want to watch that. So that was my real first experience.
All right. Well, for me, it was watching It was probably my first. And again, my mom let me watch it. And I think to this day, she still goes, I don't know why I let you. But she let me watch it. And so that's why it was really weird when the major motion picture came out. That was so like hard for a lot of people of my age group because we saw it on TV and we knew who Tim Curry was. And we're like, oh, no one is going to be better than him. Nobody's going to be better than. And it was so good. I really like the major motion picture, the parts 1 and 2. I enjoy them. Mm-hmm. But then after that, it was a lot of just those ABC miniseries.
Thinner.
What?
Before Disney got its clutches on ABC and made it,
kid friendly.
But they did like It, The Stand, The Langoliers, which is horrible, but they did
Tommy Knockers.
Tommyknockers. That
sounds like a
really
weird
creepy.
sex thing.
Sure.
It is now, jeez.
Yeah. Me and the wife were doing the Tommyknockers last night.
See, it sounds like
Followed
a sexual.
by a quick Langolier.
It totally sounds like a sex thing to me. I don't know.
Movie wise, I've seen a ton of his stuff. Like Misery is probably still one of my favorite movies of all time. Hands down, I think Kathy Bates, that was like the movie of like, hey, there's this actress, Kathy Bates, who is amazing. And she's usually fantastic in everything she does. But yeah, and as of the last few years, I have read more Stephen King books. Like I read It before the movie came out. I did read The Stand, the unedited cut that King came out with that is like 1,200 pages long. And yeah, it's a long story, but it's really fantastic. I've read The Shining. I've kind of read all the ones that are like must reads.
I've heard the Dark Tower series is the must read.
I read the first one and then the second one I just couldn't get fully into it. But I think that might have been because I read the first one and then went right into the second one and didn't like do a book in between.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just sometimes that kind of wears you out a little bit. If you read a series all the way from beginning to end, I think it kind of can wear you down.
I disagree, but I can understand and empathize.
And Dylan, have you seen Castle Rock?
I watched some of the first season and I don't know why I just kind of stopped watching. I think part of it is that the whole binging thing of eventually I can just get tired and I just want to stop watching it.
Mm-hmm.
But also it's that whole idea of it's on Hulu. I can watch it whenever I want. So why watch it now?
There's no expediency. Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't feel that drive to need to see it now. Because also it didn't really have that kind of Stranger Things or
there was very little cultural connection.
Yeah, or The Haunting of Hill House and stuff like that. Yeah, there was no like, oh, you got to watch it. You just have to talk about it. So, but no, I really like Stephen King. I think and I'll go further into it when we go further into the movie. But how he takes the supernatural and makes that almost a mirror and puts that up to society and personality. And I really love how he does that. And I can go further into that later.
Yeah. Emily, you read the short story. Is that what you kind of got from the story? Is this mirror up to society?
I think this short story does put a little bit of emphasis on societal pressures and just like Mike, he's this author that's not actually doing anything except trying to make money and he doesn't believe in anything. I don't think it was quite the point of that because this short story, I'm sure Dylan knows this, but this short story was supposed to be just like a short couple pages to show the writing process.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was like, oh, I like what I did. I guess I'll keep writing. And I will say that of The Mist and this short story, 1408, I do really like his writing. But I am definitely fucking terrified to read anything longer than a short story, I think. I don't know if I could get all the way through something like The Shining, because even the mental process of the character, I was having such a hard time getting through it. And maybe it's because I struggle with visual tension. And so seeing the movie first and then going, oh, it's a short story, I'm going to read it. I think I would have been better off if I had just read the story, where I still would have gotten the tension and I would have gotten the depth of the character. But I don't think I would have had as many, because I had a lot of nightmares last night.
Aww.
So,
well, can I push back on that? Because you talked about how you feel like the short story makes you maybe not want to read a long one because of the tension. But with the length of a short story, the tension has to kind of ramp and build at a much quicker pace because of the length of the overall story. So I feel like within a longer novel, you're not going to have that be so expedient and so extreme from one end to the other. Like, it's going to be more of a slow burn in a long novel.
Right. Yeah. Although I liked that the short story, it didn't spend a lot of time in the details of things that were happening. Like, obviously, in the short story, they talk about he keeps seeing things shift, and then he looks back and it's not there. And then he looks back and it's shifted again, or it's crooked, or he keeps feeling like his feet are stuck to the carpet and it's kind of making a weird swishing sound. Or he sees in a painting, he sees suddenly there's this woman that doesn't have her shirt on anymore and her nipples are bleeding blood. And then he looks back and it's something different. Yeah, no, like there are little specific things, but then it cuts. It's literally broken up into 3, but it cuts to when suddenly everything's on fire and someone comes to rescue him.
Okay.
And so it was tense like the movie, and it was built up and ramped up, but it didn't get into the family and horrific daughter ghost and, you know, all of these like personal things. So I felt like the short story I could handle a little bit better. But I'm curious if like other novels by Stephen King, even if they're longer, they'll still show more detail of just like terrifying events. And so I don't know if I can handle it. I'll try. I will try someday, but probably not for a while until I can, you know, stop having nightmares on this one.
I really liked the first act of this movie specifically. I thought it did a nice job of introducing Mike as this skeptical supernatural expert. Mm-hmm. And I really, really enjoyed the scene of him and Samuel L. Jackson at the hotel.
Yes, I loved it. I think Samuel Jackson, just in general, in this movie, I was like, yep, I believe you. I'm not going to be in that room. I'm out. I'm done. Like, there's no way that I'm doing this. He has so much strength and conviction in his character. I just loved everything about him. It was just like, wise black man telling me not to go there. I'm not going to go there. I'm going to listen to you.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly think that both John Cusack and Samuel Jackson, they've done their fair share of just like kind of goofy movies and stuff like that have kind of, for lack of a better word, like kind of tarnished their careers a little bit. I don't think they have, but I honestly think that they are two of the most underrated actors kind of out there who can really do good, solid work. It just seems like they always hire Samuel Jackson to do the same like kind of character from Pulp Fiction, or what, you know, to just be that, you know, like he always says, bad motherfucker, to always be that.
What evidence do you have that he can be something other than that?
I would say this movie has an example, is a good example of that, where he's not being a badass guy. He's not trying to be a badass at all or anything like that. He's just trying to be very direct and curt and to the point of going, you do not want to stay in that room.
Yeah.
And I think he did a great job with the dialogue, and just the interaction between the two of them sells that point a lot. And also, there are some other movies that he's done, like that I've heard he's fantastic in, like, what is it? Eve's Bayou. He's in that, and I've heard he's really good in that too. But I just think he's an underrated actor.
Where you got really stuck into the Nick Fury in recent years.
Yeah.
Is that what
I
you're
would
saying?
say, yeah, he's kind of gotten into that kind of wedge thing, which is great if you're a character actor. You know, it just guarantees you're going to get work. But, you know, if you're a person who wants to, like, I want to seek awards and stuff like that, it's not going to help you much.
Emily, you just brought up Nick Fury. Is this character in this movie that much different from Nick Fury?
I was just curious. I don't know.
I'd say he's a little bit more classy.
Sure, put a suit on him.
Well, no, I would say he's more the Nick Fury of Captain Marvel.
Okay.
Than he is of the Avengers. Because in the Avengers, he is just kind of like, at that point, their S.H.I.E.L.D. is established and he knows what they're supposed to be type of thing. While in Captain Marvel, he's just he seems more like a pencil pusher type person who eventually is brought into the Marvel universe type thing of oh, now I need to become Nick Fury.
When I see Samuel L. Jackson, he's got essentially two characters in my mind. He's got the badass guy like Jules from Pulp Fiction, or he's got the slightly less badass but still badass guy like Mace Windu or Nick Fury or this character in this movie, where he's got a sense of authority to him, but it's not like badass renegade authority.
I can definitely understand that.
I can see that point of view. Yeah, I can see where you're coming from on that.
But I still think like their interaction between John Cusack and Samuel Jackson, the way that they're in the office, it completely mirrors the short story and it has the same tension build. And I loved that in both the short story and in the movie, as he's going to the room, we're getting those flashes and editing of back and forth between like he's thinking about what Mr. Olin said and he's like, oh, he's getting in my head. But at the same time, he's stuck in his beliefs of there are no ghosts. There's nothing that I need to worry about. This is just him trying to get in my head. And I really liked how they built it up because at that point I was still like ready to just turn it off. I got a half hour in and turned it off and had to take a break.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've got one point about this part though that I don't like. And it's in the last 95 years, 56 people have died and no one's lasted more than an hour. Does that mean that there's only been 56 people to enter this room in 95 years? Like, I know he talks about like maids going in every now and then, but they literally talk about how like in 1920 something, someone killed themselves. And then 7 years later, someone killed themselves again. It's like, are you telling me nobody was in that room for 7 years? Like, and then you just all of a sudden reopened it because, hey, why not? New management.
Possibly.
Did they talk about that in the story? Was that a showcase thing in the short story, or could that have been? It was
kind of the same thing.
Okay.
Just kind of glossed over.
Kind of, yeah. It was more about like, you know, obviously this short story was a little bit older because it was written older, so the timeline is just a little bit different. Mm-hmm. But it talked about how him as a manager, Mr. Olin as the manager, he has specifically made sure that no one stays there. So I'm wondering if it could be different management, honestly. Like that's kind of more implied. But that's only because now you're making me think about it.
Well, I was just thinking if that might have been a writing thing. That just might have been something to put into the script. Like, ooh, 56 people in 95 years. You know, that kind of... And then they just didn't give it a second thought of going, does that make a lot of timeline sense or not?
Right.
And then just went, who cares? Just do it.
Well, they also did say that they were always at 90% capacity. I noticed that both in the movie and in the story. So maybe it was like we just always kept that one empty because we're always at 90% capacity, except on the times that they weren't. So I don't know. Is hotel management good when you're at 90% capacity at all times, or is that bad? I don't know.
90% capacity is a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would also say I kind of like the chemistry between the two of them, because in the sense that it made me wonder just now, kind of thinking about it, if did they like each other on set or not? Because they did kind of have that playfulness with each other where you could just read between the lines of just seeing like Samuel Jackson almost just wanting to scream, "You're not staying in the room." You know, of them just eventually having a screaming match. Like you could feel that tension between the two of them, which felt really, really kind of organic and good. that they were being playful, but at the end, it's like, read between the lines, buddy. You know, I'm staying in that room, whether you like it or not. And just that back and forth, I thought was really well put together.
Oh my God, thank God, Jesus, I've been trying to get through.
Did you call the cops?
Yeah, they're at the hotel. Didn't you say the Dolphin?
Yes.
You're sure?
Yes, 1408.
Mike, they're in 1408. The room's empty. Mike.
Once Mike is in the room, he begins to notice some bizarre things happening, but he assumes Mr. Olin is messing with him. When the handyman leaves after fixing the thermostat, the window smashes Mike's fingers, the door locks and won't let him out, and the clock radio starts playing "We've Only Just Begun" and starts a countdown from 60 minutes. Mike tries to escape as the ghosts of the victims and his dead daughter Katie haunt him, but all attempts are in vain, including his web call to his wife. When the room starts to shake violently, Mike breaks a painting of a ship, which floods the room, and Mike wakes up on the beach back home in LA and relives a surfing accident seen at the beginning of the movie.
So this is where I really struggled. Do you want to hear all the things that I struggled with? Because This is the point where I had to stop every 5 minutes, pause the movie, go like huddle in the corner and cry a bit, and then come back to it. I'm not even kidding you. I thought I was getting really better with horror, but apparently this kind of psychological thriller really did a number on me because I'm still like getting emotional about thinking about it. So I was doing okay when he's still kind of being this little bitch saying like, everything's, Mr. Olin's messing with me. But when we got to the thermostat and the door locked, I was by myself watching this movie during the day and I had to turn it off and wait for Corbin to get home because I struggled. And even with him home, I still had to pause every couple of minutes and just, because it was so much for me. So when the window smashes his hand, that for me with the water steaming on his hand, I was like, nope, I'm done. I can't do this. That's the first time I paused it when Corbin was home. And then the next one was when he's standing by the window. I don't remember the order, but I remember the window with him like looking at himself and trying to wave at the person to get help. And then the random moments when that person was there that was going to try to hurt him. I don't even know who that was, but the jump scares of that was not okay to me.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe in ghosts?
I don't. I don't believe in ghosts. No.
I'm not trying to be weird about it. It's just one of those things where I'm just trying to think psychologically, if you were to be a person who believed in poltergeists, stuff like that might be something to kind of push you a little bit if you had a hard belief in it. But
no, I have no belief in like superstitious ghosts or anything. I know that when I was a kid and still to this day, if I'm walking by myself or I would run up the stairs because after walking my dog at night, I would run up the stairs to try to get inside really fast because it just had this icky feeling. But that continues as being a woman walking around at night. And so I don't know what that is. But the one that really got me, though, was in the vents. The vents, I sobbed. I was sitting there crying and shaking because I was so fucking scared. I wasn't even listening to it at that point. Like the music and just the sound effects were really getting at me. And then the harsh cuts and just John Cusack's reactions were so good and so believable to me that I'm just sitting there going, nope, can't do this. I'm just going to not listen to it. And I'm going to just watch it. And then even then, I just couldn't handle the vents with I'm assuming, I don't even know who it was, but it was one of the guys that killed himself and was sewing things. I couldn't handle it.
Yeah, this movie does a really great job of building a sense of atmosphere within this small contained room. And it doesn't rely heavily like some other horror movies does on the big musical sting. Like the music is very much just more atmospheric. And when the jump scares do happen, it's not accompanied by that really loud crash of music to kind of scare you as well in an auditory and a visual way. It really relies heavily on the visuals to provide the fright to you.
And to tell you the truth, that's the kind of horror that I really enjoy are slow builds, the slow burn. You know, I remember like when Paranormal Activity came out, and this is when I was working at the theater. Ben, were you there yet or no?
No, I wasn't there yet.
Okay. But I remember discussing that with people I worked with who were all younger than me, and they all thought it sucked and that it was horrible. And, well, nothing happens and this and that. And I'm like, but you're not understanding. It's supposed to be a slow burn build to the climax. And I love that about some haunted house movies or haunted hotel rooms, is that idea of, it's almost like the spirits have to like gather energy to start really getting scary. At first you just kind of see like, oh, that thing looked like it moved a little bit. Oh, that's nothing, and then as it keeps building, then that tension grows and you just get so freaked out when finally the big thing happens. And I really like that. And that's what I really love about like right now, the Conjuring movies. I really like that because those are slow build movies. Sorry, Emily, if I'm scaring you again.
You were definitely scaring me. But like for me, there were so many big things. Like there were the blood seeping out of the walls, the baby crying, him walking along the edge of the building trying to get to the next room, and he comes back and the fucking fire escape map changes. Oh my!
But that's the thing, though, is that's part of that where it is building up to the big crescendo ending of the whole movie.
I wouldn't even say that it's a slow build, though. To me, it's like it plateaus and then it leaps and then it plateaus. I'm just thinking, oh my God, it's a fucking line crap with sorry. I struggled so much where I was like, okay, I can breathe for a second, but just kidding, I can't because more shit's happening. And I hated that. But I will say that the movie itself did a great job of it, even though I personally was scared shitless.
Yeah, the movie does have a really great sense, especially in this 60-minute countdown, of a forward sense of momentum. Like it is constantly building, and it doesn't ever have that dip where it lets you kind of like ease up a little bit. It's a constant butthole clencher all the way through. But I see what Dylan's saying, where it does ramp up. Like the stuff at the beginning is really little, like, oh, someone folded the toilet paper back. And then by the end, it's like, oh, the entire room is filled with ice, or it's flooded from a painting. Like it does build in the intensity and scale of what's happening.
But it does seem the same, honestly, like thinking overall in my head. Like it just seems like the room fucking with him and trying to get him to kill himself. And that's
why I think this movie is also very popular with horror movie lovers. It's not because it's Stephen King, but because it does have that classic slow build ending to a big ending, to a big crescendo climactic ending, where we don't have that anymore. You look at all the Saw movies and all that stuff. It's just, nope, we're just going to give it to you right now. We're just going to give you your blood and gore now. And I want something to draw me in.
By the way, Mr. Enslin, your wife just called. She'll be here in 5 minutes and we'll send her straight up.
She's not involved. You can't have her. I'm done arguing with you. I'm gonna end this.
5. This is 5.
Ignore the siren. Even if you leave this room, you can never leave this room.
Lily, Mike's estranged wife, shows up in the hospital in LA where Mike is recovering. He tells her all about room 1408 in New York, but she says that there is no Dolphin Hotel and he must have had a nightmare. She encourages him to write about his nightmare as she thinks it means he is ready to talk about Katie's death. When Mike tries to send his manuscript to his agent, he notices the workers in the post office are the same workers from the Dolphin Hotel, and he realizes he never left the room. Katie's ghost confronts him in the rubble of the room, but then the timer goes off, and the room and the clock radio countdown resets. Mike decides to end the cycle by burning the room with a Molotov cocktail, but unfortunately dies in the process.
Dude, the hair on my arms, just like not okay. I'm still fucking terrified of this fucking movie. And I think it was the incorporation of Katie in this movie, because in the story, it mentioned something about how his brother died from smoking cigarettes and having lung cancer or something along those lines years before. And so then John Cusack's character decided to quit. And that's the reason why he has the cigarette behind his ear. And he mentions briefly in his tape recording in the story that wolves ate my brother and blah, 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 the thing that you see later in or earlier in the movie. But there's nothing about a daughter family. And so I guess that emotional tie maybe could be seen as a little extreme, but I think it actually tied this movie to a more emotional haunting for me. Like, for example, seeing the coffin in the crematorium, and then when he has Katie in his arms and she dies and bursts into ashes.
Yeah.
Fuck. Like, I was out, and I don't even know how you guys handled it as dads of daughters.
Well, I'll be honest. The Katie stuff was introduced so late in the movie for me that I didn't have much of a connection to it when it happened. I feel like this movie more successfully would have introduced the death of his daughter earlier in the movie so that we can experience what Mike is experiencing in the room, which is supposed to be a representation of the 5 stages of grief. However, because Katie's introduced so late by like the 3rd stage, you don't even get that sense of that's what's happening until you look at it back in retrospect.
That is true. Yeah. Because I remember in the beginning, his agent is saying something, are you sure it's okay to go back to New York? Like, there's so much stuff there. And that just blew past me. I was like, well, whatever. I don't know. And the only reason I felt a little bit more of a connection is because I had to read the Wikipedia plot summary before I continued. And so when I was at the 20-minute segment of the movie, I at least knew about that.
Mm-hmm. Ben and I actually kind of did have that conversation a little bit after we watched it together. And we kind of did have that conversation about, and this is where I'm talking about with Stephen King and how he holds up a mirror kind of to society or to people for that matter, you know, and just kind of asks those kind of questions and about regret. And so, like, the whole meaning of the book, The Shining, and the movie, The Shining, is Stephen King wrote that book when he was dealing with his alcohol and cocaine abuse and trying to get clean. So the whole idea of it is a man is going insane, trying to get clean, you know, that kind of thing. Because the character in the book and the movie is an alcoholic. But in kind of this one, it is dealing with that grief and dealing with loss and putting that mirror in front of you and just showing everybody goes through it and we go through it differently. But I just like the way that he incorporates horror elements into that to get you to think about those things, you know, or questions. Like, again, I hate to keep referencing other stories or movies, but I'm going to. The movie and the book Pet Sematary. You know, Stephen King wrote that book and never wanted it released because it scared him so much. And it all dealt with the death of children. And the idea of, and here's spoilers for Pet Sematary, if you were given an option to bring your kids back from the dead, would you do it? And dealing with that idea of grief and, you know, loss of a child and I think this kind of has that element in it, and it may not have been in the original short story, but I think that's maybe kind of what they were doing with this, with the daughter and everything, and just kind of realizing that idea. But I do agree with what Ben said is I honestly think the very opening of the movie where he's at that first hotel where they're telling him about all the deaths and blah, blah, blah. I almost think he should have had a dream sequence of the daughter and the beginning of that to kind of plant those seeds and then kind of and have it be a nightmare for him about his daughter and then kind of progressing forward into the story, thus bringing it more forward in.
You know, I actually think I would have liked that because then I would have been a little bit more, I would have believed the whole 1408 possibly being a nightmare, at least. You know, like I would have believed that a little bit better because it seemed a little construed. I don't know the word I'm trying to think of.
If it's not in the short story, though, then it's not Stephen King doing this in this movie because it's not like Stephen King wrote this movie. So what you could say is then this is people trying to replicate what Stephen King does in his movies and books, but doesn't know or understand how Stephen King does it, and therefore falls short of ultimately accomplishing that mere reflection of society.
I would agree with, I would agree. It's more sloppily done. Yes. But it still kind of has that feel of a Stephen, because I didn't know that was not part of the short story. the family death. So I would honestly say that's a pretty good add-in. But yeah, it did kind of have a little sloppiness to it that another rewrite or some more editing could have fixed.
Well, speaking of sloppiness and editing, the ending that we watched, which is the one where John Cusack dies in the fire, we see his funeral, Samuel L. Jackson shows up with a box of his stuff.
I was like, here, take it, Lily, take it from me. And she's like, no.
And then Samuel L. Jackson hears the recording from the hotel room that has Katie on it. And then we see John Cusack's ghost within the burned remains of 1408. That was the director's cut ending of the movie and the original ending to the movie before it tested so poorly. And I can see why it tested poorly, because it's a very shitty ending to the movie.
Yeah. It's horrifying.
Sure, it's horrifying, but it doesn't fit anything. Like,
right.
We don't need to see Samuel L. Jackson realize that ghosts are real, because he's not the one that was skeptical the entire time.
Right.
Yeah. Or him to realize, the room is haunted.
Right. He's been preaching that the whole time. Like,
exactly.
Right. And I think also for me, there were a few jump scares, but the fact that they put burned John Cusack in the backseat of Samuel L. Jackson's car, I'm just like, fuck, why'd you do that to me? Like, why? What was the purpose of that? We had all of this build. There needs to be some sort of resolution. Do not do this to me.
I would honestly say the reason why they did that is because at that time, and even now, every horror movie has to do that last big sting scare thing. And it's like, no, you don't need to do that. But they feel this need to do it all the time.
It would have been a better movie without it.
Well, so the ending that showed up in theaters is John Cusack gets saved by some firefighters at the end. And then we see John Cusack living his life with Lily, his wife. And Lily listens to the recording on the tape recorder and hears Katie. And then they both together realize that there is this supernatural element to the world. So it's much more in line with the character and the struggles that were being built within the movie. I don't know why. Dylan, do you know why they decided to go with this and why this is like the only ending we can find is the Samuel L. Jackson garbage?
You know, honestly, I don't know why they don't include both endings on a DVD or a Blu-ray, because they don't. It's so weird. I don't know why they would do that. Or at least give you the option, to watch it either way. But again, like what Ben said, people don't like downer endings. They don't like a sad ending. And that kind of has a sad ending, because in the end, nobody won. The room won in the end, or it was a draw. The room gets destroyed, it'll never be reopened, but yet it got to claim at least one more person to its evil.
The Samuel L. Jackson ending you're talking about.
Yes, yeah. That kind of ends at a draw. Well, audiences in the summer, they don't want those kind of endings.
To be fair, he also survives in the short story, so maybe there were some Stephen King fans that were like, fuck you! You didn't follow the story.
Maybe, but I kind of put it on a bunch of people who aren't horror fans or aren't this or that, watched it and went, I don't like this, and wrote out their comment cards, ending stunk.
Mm-hmm.
And so the studio went, oh no, we need to change the ending, because they are so dependent now. The studio system is so dependent on audience screenings and seeing what they think when, instead of just going with the art. What did the director and the writers want?
But they did change the ending. That Samuel L. Jackson scene was the original ending, but not the theatrical ending. But then it's brought back for the director's ending. So, like this theatrical ending that everyone saw and everyone supposedly liked, like the John Cusack one with his wife that ended up in the final cut. Like, why is that the one that's lost? Like, if anything, the director's cut's the one that should be lost if it got cut for a reason.
It's a good question.
That would again go with an I don't know.
Okay.
I think that's an odd decision for the studio or whoever to make that decision. But I prefer, I saw this in the theater, and this was like the second or third time I'd actually watched this movie since seeing it in the theater. I like the original ending. That idea of they both hear it and they both kind of have a good, like, oh my God, and probably a cry when the credits, after the screen goes black. I can just see them both bursting into tears and then hugging each other and embracing, and that being just such a wonderful ending. I like the original theatrical ending compared to this one. This one I thought was just too too studio notey, even though it wasn't studio noted. It just felt too like, we need to add one more scare. Put one more scare in there. It's like, no, we don't need that.
And then maybe they just wanted to bring Samuel L. Jackson back. I don't know. I literally have no idea. I thought he did such a great job in the beginning that I was kind of disappointed that he wasn't in the majority of the movie. But then John Cusack stole my heart with his horrifying just acting abilities. He made me terrified, and I was totally fine watching him and forgetting about Samuel L. Jackson.
It was hard for me to watch John Cusack in this movie because I've seen where John Cusack's career has gone, and he's become this kind of like C-list guy who does only straight-to-video movies. So when I see him show up now, I expect campiness and direct-to-video quality. And I truly wanted Nicolas Cage in this movie. Like, I think Nicolas Cage would have been able to pull off this role and done very well with it. It was just too long to spend with just John Cusack, who I felt was very vanilla in this movie.
So I agree, Nick Cage would be fucking rad in this movie. But I would also like to mention, I have never seen John Cusack in any movie before. So that's probably why I was like, whoa, this is great.
No preconceived notions, for sure.
You know, again, Ben and I had this conversation, like who would be better at it. And one of the first people that I suggested was Robin Williams. Because I've seen him do dramatic stuff. And he was, believe it or not, he was a Juilliard student.
But see, here's the thing. I wouldn't want to see that because I want him to comfort me.
Yeah.
I don't want that.
Emily, so I know this movie made you experience and feel a lot of things, but did it teach you anything?
I'm learning.
It taught me that I'm not as strong as I thought I was. I was getting so confident in my abilities to watch more horror, and this shattered everything. It's not even like a lesson from the movie. It's just I'm real fucked up from this movie. And I'm sure, Rashawn, if you're listening from Cinephiles, when Cinephiles attack, I don't think I can watch any horror movies with you ever in my life. I'm sorry. I love you.
Well, I applaud you for taking the step because 10 months ago, you flat out just refused to watch Saw 4. So at least you're making strides to try to push yourself, and you're understanding yourself better. So that's good.
Yeah. I know what I will not watch.
Yep.
Ben, can we do some lighthearted games, please?
Okay! Game on! Game on! Game on!
Yeah, and I'm going to do a game kind of for you, Emily, but Dylan's going to play today. This game's called Movie Math.
Oh.
So, Dylan, I'm going to give you a couple movies, and you need to do the math involved with their titles.
Oh, God.
Okay, so it's all simple addition, subtraction, and multiplication. I'm not going to, force you to do any, like, calculus or anything like that. But you may want some paper pencil. I will allow paper pencil on this test. And away we go. David Fincher and Morgan Freeman movie, plus Gerard Butler and Zack Snyder movie.
What did Gerard Butler and Zack Snyder make together?
I'll give you a hint. We covered it in this podcast.
Yeah, we did an episode on it.
I know the first one's 7.
Yep.
300? So 307?
Yep. Seconds It Takes to Be Gone, minus First Dates.
10?
Correct. Monkeys, plus Ghosts.
Are we talking 12 monkeys and 13 ghosts?
We are.
Okay, then that's 25.
Heads in a Duffel Bag, times number of days it takes to lose a guy.
80?
Correct. Grams, minus Candles.
Are we talking 21 minus 16? 5?
Correct. Smoking Barrels, times Female Oceans.
16?
Correct. Sam Mendes World War I movie, plus Chadwick Boseman baseball movie.
1917 plus 42, 7, 8, 9. God damn it. 5, 19, 50. Oh, shit.
Okay. The amount of straight sex sexual combinations possible between the brides and the brothers.
So 7 times 7. 49?
Correct. Do you think he deserves a point for that performance then, Emily? You're our judge today. Does he deserve a point for that performance?
Honestly, the fact that he knew that many movie titles, that impressed the shit out of me.
Well, there was a reason he played and you didn't play.
Fuck you too. Dylan gets a point.
Woo! Way to go, Dylan.
Yay!
Little brain exercise for you today. And to cap us off, Dylan, you got a review for us?
1408 is not your average PG-13 horror film. It has decent plot, good storytelling, some good acting from the three people that are in it. I think it does a great job at talking about grief and death and how we get over these sorts of things. But it also goes over the ideas of faith and belief of what's out there. So I'd give this movie 8 out of 10.
So you two are going to be doing our Battle of Twits today. Are you so excited?
Yeah.
Yes.
Good. Okay. Wow. For our first question, I have a special treat for you both. We've done this before. I have 6 random characters that you are going to choose from, and Dylan's going to select first.
Booyah.
So here are your options. Ron Burgundy from Anchorman, Biff Tannen from Back to the Future, Viola Hastings from She's the Man, Sandy from Grease, Louis the Alligator from Princess and the Frog, or Knuckles McGinty from Paddington 2.
I'll go with Ron Burgundy.
And Ben.
I can't pass up a Paddington character, so I got to go Knuckles McGinty.
And now it's time for the battle of who can end Emily's nightmares first.
I can.
Woo! I will pose 3 questions to our less than experts and see who can help me forget this movie ever happened. The winner of each question will get 1 point, and the loser will get 0 and make me cry. Yay! I will be most impressed by silly and funny responses to cancel out the horrifying nightmares in my head. Twits, are you ready?
Yeah.
Sure.
I'm glad that you're so thrilled.
Thrilled.
Question number 1. Mike Enslin is cynical and doesn't believe in ghosts. So it's perfect that he makes a shit ton of money off of his scary books about spooky and haunted places. I want to know what other book series movie characters could write, because it just seems fun.
Mm-hmm.
For this Wesley's Random question, I want you to describe the book series that your random movie character writes and gets famous for. So before the break, you both picked your choices, and Dylan, you chose Ron Burgundy from Anchorman. So why don't you tell us the book series that Ron Burgundy writes and gets famous for?
All right. Well, in this world, we all have the books that are called For Dummies. Lawyers for Dummies, those kind of things. So we're going to go with Ron Burgundy's book series, The Burgundy Way, where with such beautiful titles such as Cocktail Making, The Burgundy Way, Love Making, The Burgundy Way, How to Get Out of Traffic Tickets, The Burgundy Way, and last and certainly not least, Weddings, The Burgundy Way. Don't think that I'm excluding the rest of the news team along with that. Every single one of them are going to have dealing with that particular book. We're going to have Brian Fantana writing How to Pick Up Chicks. With How to Get Out of a Traffic Ticket. How do you pick up that sexy lady cop? Brian Fantana knows. With Champ, how are you going to add a little extra whammy to that wedding or that lovemaking or that cocktail? And sadly, since Brick does not fully understand, every time his chapter will be about the mating rituals of salmon. So there you go. Ron Burgundy will be more famous writing his books on how-tos for dummies, The Burgundy Way. And of course, his final book will be titled How to Write These Books, The Burgundy Way.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And I'm just curious, why do people keep buying these?
Well, because he's Ron Burgundy. He is so he's the exemplar of class and greatness and how to be under pressure, just how to be cool under pressure. I mean, look at him when he's reading the news. He is cool under pressure, baby. And he knows how to TCB, take care of business.
Okay, Ben, you chose Knuckles McGinty from Paddington 2.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for allowing me to further the universe that is Paddington with my answer, so I appreciate that.
We need more Paddington.
Yeah, we do need more Paddington. Knuckles McGinty, though, I'm not even sure that guy can read. But one thing that I do know he can read is recipes. So Knuckles decides he's going to write a series of diet and self-help books around the idea of prison eating, where all the ingredients would be items that he had readily available to him inside the clink. His first book, Knuckles Sandwich, features all of his favorite sandwich-style offerings, including the now famous marmalade sandwich, which Paddington allowed him to put in the book because he's such a nice bear. And this is really the reason that the series took off. But his next book, Eating Like a Felon, is more of a self-help book about the powers of a prisoner's diet on the emotional and physical states of a person, but also includes many of his other go-to mealtime offerings. The third and final entry in the series, Jailbreak, is also accompanied by a workout DVD series that showcases exercises that can be completed in a 6x6 cell, and also speaks to the ability that healthy living has of breaking you out of the self-imposed jail cell of poor dieting and exercise. Everyone loves fad diets and self-help books. It's one of the hottest selling genres, and you are getting advice straight from the source, because it's not easy looking as good as Knuckles, but it is possible, and he's ready to tell you how.
Okay, so you said that you're a little concerned that he can't read, but he can read a recipe. So my question is, can he write?
I mean, he can dictate.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Most of these books now are ghostwritten anyway. Like he'll just stand there and just kind of like, here's what I throw into the sandwich, and the guy will write it down.
Okay. Can I ask who is his ghostwriter? I just got to know.
So actually, Hugh Grant's character from Paddington 2.
Phoenix?
Yeah, Phoenix. Yes, he needed a hobby in there, and once he was done with his big stage play, like he knew that he wanted to continue in entertainment, so he's ghostwriting the book for Knuckles.
Love it. All right. Well, thank you, both of you, for some delightful answers. Number 2. We all know that some pretty scary and fucked up shit happened in room 1408. But what about the other rooms on the 14th floor? Those rooms were probably jealous of all the haunted and scary attention from 1408. 1408 is just stealing their thunder. So, what's the scariest thing to happen in room 1409? Ben?
Yeah, so while 1408 is known for grisly murders and ghostly apparitions, 1409 is known for something far more heinous and deadly, being the shooting location for the movie The Number 23. 14 plus 9, 23. But, did that room kill? Yeah, it killed Joel Schumacher's career and the credibility of Jim Carrey. How did it do this, though? It's just a hotel room, right? Wrong, because room 1409 is a space entirely devoid of logic. It literally zaps out any creative and logical thinking that occurs in its occupants' brains. All ideas inside of 1409 are good ideas, even the ones that are absolutely horse shit, like the number 23. Imagine seeking a retreat at a hotel for you to do some writing, or if you're Dylan, just some alone time to do some masturbating.
What?
You can hear weird shit happening across the hall, already a bad distraction, and now the room you're in is trying to convince you to watch the Adam Sandler movie Jack and Jill. It must be good. It has Al Pacino. But I came here for writing, you shout to the room ceiling. The room bellows back. Jack and Jill has a screenplay. You can learn the craft by watching it. Truly some frightening shit. And just to be clear, the room's suggestion of watching Jack and Jill did not stop Dylan from what he was in that room to do. That Jill started to look pretty hot to him. What an evil, evil room.
I feel like you have two things going on here. Like, are you suggesting that Dylan was also in 1409? Like, there were two bad things, evil things that...
No, these are examples where if normal people went into 1409, what it would do to them. Like, it's...
Oh, okay. Okay.
I was trying to show, like, how it takes all ideas and turns them into good ideas.
All right. Dylan, what was the scariest thing to happen in 1409?
Well, I think I went a little bit more funny. I think boy humor. Okay, one of the greatest minds on the face of the planet stayed at the Dolphin in 1921. Albert Einstein in his first visit to America. While staying at the hotel, he was feeling a bit peckish and wanted something to eat. He called up room service and asked, "What is the most American thing that you can suggest for me to eat?" He was then sent up a massive plate of foods. Examples were hot dogs, egg salad sandwiches, and shoe-fly pie.
Ugh, what the fuck is that?
It's like it's a molasses pie.
Okay.
He ate them with great pleasure and enjoyed it all. Although the egg salad tasted slightly odd, he did not take note because he had never tasted one before. That was until he woke in the middle of the night with his stomach just doing backflips. He ran to the bathroom and proceeded to vomit into the nearby toilet. But that was not all.
Oh, no.
He also felt his butt about to explode.
Oh, no.
And out came the most massive of massive diarrheas. So what was the worst thing to happen in 1409? It was when Albert Einstein had food poisoning so bad he repainted the walls in the bathroom with his vomit and diarrhea. Like in 1408, the maid service was only allowed to clean for 10 minutes because at the time, due to the stench that was left behind, you could only take 10 minutes at a time. That is the worst, scariest thing to happen in 1409.
I don't even want to ask a question. Wow, that was disgusting. Thank you, Dylan. You okay there, Ben?
Yeah. He lost me when he said in 1921 there was a phone in a hotel room to call guest services. Like, I just don't think it worked like that. But whatever, if anyone can figure it out, it's Einstein, so I'll give him credit.
Right. And the whole, hotel room zapping out any creative and logical thinking definitely is a mystical thing.
I at least went paranormal with it. He's trying to pull the wool over our eyes with invention and real life shit.
Are you Googling when the phones are put in hotels, Dylan? Because I heard you typing.
Sadly, yes.
Okay. All right.
Who cares? Suspension of disbelief. How about that?
I had a nice time with both of them. I think Ben's just pissed because I always enjoy poop jokes, even if they're disgusting.
Yeah, I should have gone to that well. That was my
bad. I will say this. I ever say telephone. I just said called up. It could have been pneumatic tubes.
Fuck off.
All right.
I meant that bell system that they had in old English houses.
It was like, don't nabby.
Fuck you.
All right, Ben, for number 3, I'm going to have you take your headphones off. Hey, number 3 is a mystery question. It is completely up to me. Neither Ben or Dylan have any idea what this question is. And I do also want to point out that it is completely improv. They will have a full minute to tell me their answer, and that is it. So, Dylan, are you ready for the mystery question?
As ready as I can be.
Okay, here's my preface. 1408 did some really horrible shit to a lot of people. But who did the horrible shit to 1408? Who broke 1408's heart to cause all that pain and hurt? Who hurt the room?
I would say it was a lowly construction worker and his girlfriend. As he was giving her, he had just finished working on the beautiful Dolphin Hotel, and he was giving his girlfriend, who he was going to ask to marry him, a tour of the rooms. He took her up to his favorite of the rooms, 1408, where he got down on one knee, and he said, "Baby, I love you so much. Will you please take my hand in marriage and be my beautiful wife?" And what did she do? She turned him down.
Oh,
And right then and there, after he basically screamed at her, went nuts, she ran out of the room, he then pled his life to Satan and then sacrificed himself in that hotel room. And with his blood, tainted that room, forever haunting it. I would say that is how the room was broken. The room got broken by a lonely-hearted man seeking horrible vengeance upon anybody who would later enter that room to feel the same pain and agony that he felt that day when his hopeful, blushing bride turned him down.
Oh my goodness. It's so illogical and I love it. Okay, Ben, are you ready?
Yeah.
So, we all know that the room 1408 hurt a lot of people, but who the fuck hurt 1408? Ben, who broke 1408's heart or hurt it to cause all that pain?
Honestly, the answer is Albert Einstein. What you didn't know is that 1409 and 1408 were married. Hotel rooms can marry each other. And when Albert Einstein desecrated this beautiful room that was 1409 with its shit, 1408 just fucking lost it. And it could not handle its woman being treated that way. And 1408, like, it just couldn't handle it. So it just started murdering people. And the first person it tried to murder was this guy named Grady Einstein. Not sure if you knew that. It's Albert's cousin who was visiting Albert across the hall, actually. Like, this literally happened within days of Albert's just destruction of the room. So who hurt him? The answer is Albert Einstein. And I don't think there's any dispute that's what would cause something so horrific and a hotel room to turn so badly. How do you like that, bitch?
Okay, you two, great job on Battle of Twits. I thought both of you did such a phenomenal job. Thank you for pushing all the nightmares out of my eyeballs and head. Like, I really appreciate that. So, number one, my question for you was to describe a book series that your random movie character writes and gets famous for. We had Ron Burgundy with Dylan doing The Burgundy Way. For example, Lovemaking, The Ron Burgundy Way, or just The Burgundy Way, excuse me. And Weddings, The Burgundy Way. So funny. Dylan, absolutely hilarious. I could definitely picture him doing something exactly like this. And I love that you incorporated the other guys too. Ben, you chose Knuckles McGinty. I died laughing as soon as you said, not sure he can read. I also really enjoyed that you had your titles picked out going along with the jail aspect and his cooking aspect and dieting. I thought that was very clever. For me, both of them, absolutely hilarious. For me, though, the part that made the most sense was that people love fads and diet shit. And so even though I wanted to give this one to Dylan because I thought it was such a funny answer, Ben's was also really funny, but that little piece pushed it over to Ben. So that one's going to Ben. All right, number two. What's the scariest thing to happen in room 1409? Ben went first this time, and he talked about how Joel Schumacher created the number 23 in the room 1409. And wow, that was something I was not expecting. It is terrifying. I think you had a very well thought out answer, and I definitely appreciated it, especially with our hate of that movie. So thank you for that. Dylan, yeah, wow, disgusting. Albert Einstein basically painted the walls with his shit and vomit. That's what happened. Yeah, that's horrifying. And I'm just going straight to Dylan on this one. That is the most disgusting thing that I think I could ever imagine.
And then after they cleaned it up, they said, "We call ourselves the aristocrats."
No, she doesn't get that joke.
I don't. Good try, Dylan. It's still your point.
No, that may have lost him the point.
It may have. All right, question 3, mystery question. My mystery question for you was, what hurt 1408? Because it's just a room. It's a hotel room. I had to know, like, Why is it hurting people? What's going on? What's this origin? Dylan, I love that you went with like this construction worker, proposes to his girlfriend, and when she denies him, he goes pure Satan and fucking dedicates to worshiping Satan and sacrifices himself to create this demonic room to destroy everyone's chance at love. Oh my God. That was hella dark. I loved it. Ben, the fact that you attacked Dylan's answer was pretty genius because you made it work for yourself. And the fact that you developed this lore of hotel rooms being alive and marrying each other, pretty great as well. And just a lot of little details that I appreciated. I am going to go with Ben on this one. But again, I think it's because of Dylan's answer from number 2.
Yeah, we'll give you the assist on that one, Dylan.
So assist for Dylan, no extra points, but I'll get you something nice. Ben, you take this. So it is 2-1. Congratulations, both of you. Thank you for getting rid of my nightmares.
Welcome.
Because that was the point of this game, right?
Yeah. It was not to win. We don't care about winning here at IDYP.
Yeah.
We care about making sure Emily doesn't have nightmares.
That works.
Sure.
Dylan, thank you so much for being on today.
You're very welcome. Yay.
Yeah. Do you have anything you'd like to plug?
No.
Nothing at all?
I got, no. I got nothing.
How about go back to the movie theaters if you feel safe?
Yes.
They're open now. Movies are out.
I've heard Quiet Place Part 2. It's the place to be. I've also heard, actually, if you guys ever watch Dan Merle on YouTube, he gave the third Conjuring movie a really good review and said, if you can see this in a theater, do it. Because there's one thing these Conjuring movies get right, and that is atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
Something that I would say would go with this movie. Atmosphere. The atmosphere is very good and creepy.
And that Conjuring movie, though, is also on HBO Max, correct?
Yes, The Conjuring. The devil made me do it.
Oh, I bet it was the lowly construction worker.
Okay, well, Dylan, thanks again for being on. Thank you, everyone, for listening today. Please subscribe, rate, share with a friend or two. Check us out at IDYP_podcast on Twitter and Instagram, or email us at idrinkyourpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you so much for your continued support. And next week, we'll be having on our friend Rachel, and we will be watching Meet the Robinsons, which is a phenomenal Disney animated movie from, 2007, right?
No way!
I know, shocking.
What?
Emily, Dylan, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Ben.
No, thank you.
No. Thank you.
No. I want Wesley back.
Yeah, we all do.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.